Aggretsuko, or better known as Aggressive Retsuko, is a wonderful anime that I happened to come across by accident. I had no intention of watching this show that had only briefly been described to me as Death Metal Hello Kitty, which, while watching this show, I now understand why. Aggretsuko is honestly an incredible anime that has no right being as good as it is. By the way, I should probably specify that I'm talking about the Netflix series, not so much the 1 minute long series. I haven't made my way through all 100 episodes of that yet. So today, even though I already had plans for another video this week, I decided to take the time to talk about Aggretsuko. What's great about this show is the dynamic that is built between all of the characters, the art style, and of course the critique on Japanese work culture. So a quick synopsis first. The show follows Retsuko, a businesswoman working a 9-to-5 job as an accountant at a stereotypical Japanese firm. Oh yeah, and she's also a red panda. It starts off with her being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, quite literally, to realizing just how horrible her job is. She has lazy coworkers who throw extra work at her, a rude boss who not only hates her but actively goes out of his way to make her life even harder, and worst of all, she's a pushover who never retaliates. Retsuko has to learn to cope with it all by secretly sneaking off to a karaoke bar and singing death metal. The show is masterful, particularly in its use of comedy, which, for me at least, seems to hit way too close to home sometimes. The comedy is built off of the characters of the show and how they react to specific situations. Retsuko is a pushover who holds her fury in until she can release it safely. Finnick is a social media stalker who has insight into any situation. Ton is a misogynistic pig, quite literally, who is always making life harder for Retsuko. And there are plenty of other characters with unique traits that bounce off the surrounding cast excellently. The comedy is mostly found in everyday situations. These are all only funny because of the creative characters and the over-exaggerated art style that accompanies them. You see, this Hello Kitty-esque art style heavily contrasts the harsh reality of the actual show, which, by the way, is about a woman being oppressed and bullied by her boss/senior co-workers because that was simply the climate they were raised in. She has no way out of this situation, thus she must either create some elaborate scheme to help herself or simply accept her situation. The show explores the problem with misogynistic workplaces, along with some of the problems that come from having an insane amount of work placed on you. Yet it's all done in a light tone, which is something I'm not usually a fan of. I feel like when things are done to comic effect, this often destroys the true meaning of what is actually being made fun of. But this show is able to avoid that, often letting me laugh at the joke and then having its meaning still hit pretty hard. For instance, one of my favorite characters is a suck-up to the boss. She openly worships him despite his actions merely to gain his favor. Finnick makes a harsh joke saying she's trading dignity for less work. This is a funny joke, but later on it's revealed that this is really the case. The character openly admits that her actions aren't dignified and often nets her hate from most of her coworkers. But she's able to accept that. That is the situation she chose and is now stuck in. It's sad and somewhat dark, but the truth. Each character in the show starts off as a generic trope often relating to the animal that they are. The boss is a pig, the talkative idiot is a hippo, and the one who snoops in everyone's business is a fox. But weirdly enough, the show often subverts these tropes. Look no further than the main character who is a docile red panda who is a pushover at work, but also regularly sings death metal on her way home. Some other quick examples being the hippo who is actually a secret spy for another company, and the fox who at first seems hostile towards men, but easily falls for the smallest amount of smooth talk. The most interesting example I can think of is Ton, the boss. Although he is undoubtedly a horrible boss, towards the end of the show, he occasionally gives small beads of good advice to Retsuko, showing that he does have some sympathy. He's still an asshole though. Aggretsuko is an incredible show, and it makes many statements about the cruelty of work culture in Japan with a comedic touch. This all makes it easier to digest, but still very potent with its message. The show never glorifies the hard work achieved by any characters, and is willing to show the length some characters will go to make their work life just a little easier. From throwing away their dignity to trying to marry a rich man, and even working hard enough to be the boss so you can force others to do your work instead. It's a horrible environment that perpetuates itself. You can either accept it for what it is, or you can scheme your way out of it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm really disappointed. I wanted to talk more about the comedy and how they employed it into the show, but it was going to take a lot of extra time, and on top of that, it didn't really seem to fit into this video. A huge shout out to my patrons. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for all your continued support, especially recently. I have fallen behind greatly on my tasks, yet you guys still seem to support and care about the channel, and I am extremely appreciative of that. Speaking of which, if you're interested in seeing how I edit, chatting with me, or just supporting the channel, I run a $1 a month Patreon to make that as easy as possible. Make sure you guys share, like, comment, and subscribe. This is Manime Matt. Make sure you guys stay man, go watch that goddamn anime!